bag traveled through a time black hole and appeared beside an ancient general. The general had no idea what this was. A curious soldier picked it up and discovered that it was very warm. Just as everyone was puzzled, a quilt suddenly flew out of the bathtub, along with various foods and water. It turned out that on the other side, the girl saw how magical the bathtub was, so she found unused items at home and threw them all into it. Seeing so many supplies appear suddenly, the general and his soldiers were extremely excited. He immediately ordered his subordinates to distribute all the quilts and food to the soldiers. It turned out that the general was currently besieged by the enemy, not only lacking food, but also lacking clothing to withstand the cold. Seeing so many novel items in the bathtub, the general believed that this must be food gifted by God, so he immediately led his soldiers to thank the divine for the blessing. However, these foods alone were not enough to help them survive the crisis. Therefore, the general wrote a letter and threw it into the bathtub. When the girl saw it, she realized that this magical bathtub could actually connect to ancient times. She immediately wrote a reply to the general and said she would send supplies to him as soon as possible. Soon, the girl began buying various types of rice online. However, her phone soon sent a notification that her balance was insufficient. While the girl was worrying, a large amount of gold and silver treasures suddenly flew out of the bathtub next to her. It turned out that these were the general's rewards. The girl was very excited when she saw them. After having enough money, she immediately purchased more supplies. Meanwhile, the general had no knowledge of any of this. Looking at the bathtub that hadn't responded, everyone felt a bit frustrated. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a large amount of food suddenly flew out of the bathtub. That's right. The girl was putting these supplies into the bathtub. After solving the food problem, the girl contacted the clothing store owner and directly ordered 20,000 sets of winter clothes, as well as a large number of bedding. The clever girl also thought of buying some solar heaters for the general. Soon, the general received these items. Seeing these modern clothes and boots, the soldiers became even more convinced that the girl on the other side must be God. At this moment, another soldier discovered the solar heaters sent by the girl. The soldier was extremely excited upon seeing them, mistakenly thinking that the girl had gifted them the sun. A few minutes later, everyone gradually learned how to use the heaters and eagerly competed to warm themselves in front of them. The general was very happy to see this. To show his gratitude, he wrote a letter to the girl. The girl, in her reply, confessed her true identity to the general. During their frequent communication, the girl also learned about the general's predicament. To help the general defeat the enemy, the girl began contacting some arms manufacturers. Meanwhile, the enemy had already learned through spies about the situation in the general's camp. To prevent the general's troops from further strengthening their combat power, they had to immediately launch an attack on the general. The general was very distressed upon learning this. Although they now had sufficient supplies, the enemy still had an absolute numerical advantage. To defend the city, the general could only grit his teeth and go out to fight. What was worse, their bows and arrows were already running low. If the battle really began, they would probably have no chance of winning. The soldiers suggested that the general pray to God for help, but now the enemy had already reached the city walls, and there was no time to notify the girl. Little did they know, the girl had already bought a large amount of armor and various weapons. Meanwhile, the enemy had officially launched the attack. As the general was about to engage in battle, his subordinate suddenly brought news that the girl had replied, and in 2 hours, she would deliver a batch of equipment. The general ordered the deputy general to protect the bathtub. Then he charged out with his men. However, because the general's forces were too few, they soon fell into a disadvantage. But the general could only struggle to hold on, hoping to survive these 2 hours. Meanwhile, the girl was also busy in a hurry. Just as the general was about to be killed by the enemy, the girl finally delivered various weapons. With these modern weapons, the battlefield situation was quickly reversed. Soon after, the general won this war. Regrettably, the general was severely injured and was about to face life-threatening danger. But ancient medicine could not save the general. In despair, the deputy general remembered the girl, so he threw the general's tattered clothes into the bathtub. The girl on the other side saw this and was very worried about the general's health. She immediately prepared to throw a medical kit in. Unexpectedly, in her panic, she accidentally fell into the bathtub herself.
Tap that subscribe button and don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching.